Thousands of years ago, the greatest country in the world was Egypt. It was a beautiful land lying on both sides of the wonderful river Nile. In it were many great cities, and from one end of it to the other there were broad fields of grain and fine pastures for sheep and cattle. The people of Egypt were very proud, for they believed that they were the first and oldest of all nations. "It was in our country that the first men and women lived," they said. "All the people of the world were once Egyptians." A king of Egypt, whose name was Psammetichus, wished to make sure whether this was true or not. How could he find out? He tried first one plan and then another, but none of them proved anything at all. Then he called his wisest men together and asked them, "Is it really true that the first people in the world were Egyptians?" They answered, "We cannot tell you, O king, for none of our histories go back so far." Then Psammetichus tried still another plan. He sent out among the poor people of the city and found 2 little babies who had never heard a word spoken. He gave these to a shepherd and ordered him to bring them up among his sheep, far from the homes of men. "You must never speak a word to them," said the king, "and you must not permit any person to speak in their hearing." The shepherd did as he was bidden. He took the children far away to a green valley where his flocks were feeding. There he cared for them with love and kindness, but no word did he speak in their hearing. They grew up healthy and strong. They played with the lambs in the field and saw no human being but the shepherd. Thus 2 or 3 years went by. Then, one evening when the shepherd came home from a visit to the city, he was delighted to see the children running out to meet him. They held up their hands, as though asking for something, and cried out, "Becos! Becos! Becos!" The shepherd led them gently back to the hut and gave them their usual supper of bread and milk. He said nothing to them, but wondered where they had heard the strange word "becos," and what was its meaning. After that, whenever the children were hungry, they cried out, "Becos! Becos! Becos!" till the shepherd gave them something to eat. Some time later, the shepherd went to the city and told the king that the children had learned to speak one word, but how or from whom, he did not know. "What is that word?" asked the king. "Becos." Then the king called one of the wisest scholars in Egypt and asked him what the word meant. "Becos," said the wise man, "is a Phrygian word, and it means bread." "Then what shall we understand by these children being able to speak a Phrygian word which they have never heard from other lips?" asked the king. "We are to understand that the Phrygian language was the first of all languages," was the answer. "These children are learning it just as the first people who lived on the earth learned it in the beginning." "Therefore," said the king, "must we conclude that the Phrygians were the first and oldest of all the nations?" "Certainly," answered the wise man. And from that time the Egyptians always spoke of the Phrygians as being of an older race than themselves. This was an odd way of proving something, for, as everyone can readily see, it proved nothing.